Welcome to Kitchen Table Finance, the podcast where we serve up bite-sized pieces of financial advice to simplify your money and your life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Kitchen Table Finance. Unfortunately, we don't have Dave with us here today. He's dealing with a little bit of ice storm issues, no power, all that fun stuff that goes with living in northern Michigan this time of year. But we do have his future replacement in the industry and our current intern, Mr. Nathan Gardner, with us. And today we are just going to kind of go over and ask Nathan about his experience as an intern here at SRB and glean some insight into what he learned about retirement planning as he has spent the last couple of months with us. So with that, Nathan, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from?
Absolutely. So thanks for having me on, first of all. So I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is about an hour and a half southwest of Lansing. Originally grew up in a super small town, graduated with about 100 kids. So I wanted to get that big school experience, get out of that comfort zone a little bit and meet new people. So that was really the reason for coming to MSU.
That's awesome. So you went from your entire class was 100 kids?
Yeah.
So like lecture halls of like what's the largest
Like
lecture hall
500, 600, some of those business classes. Yeah,
bigger than your
ridiculous.
entire school, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, kudos to you, man. That's a big change. A lot of kids would shy away from that. So that's awesome that you knew what you wanted and went after it and tried something new. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And it gets you out of that comfort zone too, which I think is very
Yeah,
important for the growth.
for sure. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your decision to join the wealth management program at Michigan State and kind of what led you into deciding that you wanted to hopefully, replace Dave someday.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of came into Michigan State not knowing exactly what I wanted to do in finance, but I knew I wanted to do finance, maybe go high finance, private equity, something on Wall Street, and then eventually kind of just start up my own business, maybe in the finance space or not, because I didn't feel any particular like passion for, working on Wall Street. So it got to like my sophomore, junior year, I was applying to internships and I really tried to dive into the why statement. Like, why do I want to do this? Does this feel meaningful to me? So the fall of my junior year, actually, I joined the Wealth Management Association at MSU. So that was very implemental and really just honestly showing me what the industry is all about. Specifically, even your meeting, Nick, that you came in and presented to us was very implemental. And I remember that one for sure because I think one thing that kind of stuck in my head was you talking about the life planning process. And you were like, something about what if you had 6 months to live, 6 weeks, 6 minutes, what really matters to you? So that kind of just showed me that this business can be more than just money and more than just purely increasing returns. So once I figured out that I could make a meaningful impact through this work, I kind of just tried to immerse myself in the industry as much as possible and then ended up connecting with you guys through the Wealth Management Association, and the rest was kind of history.
That's awesome. I feel like my work is done here. I've inspired another young person to pursue a career in financial life planning, and I think we're done here. And just so our listeners know, we are paying you, but we're not paying you to say nice things about us, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more. Give our listeners, because I don't think we've ever gone through this before, but tell us a little bit about the wealth management program, like what exactly that is, what your favorite part is, maybe what your favorite class is, and kind of what you've learned.
Absolutely. So it's somewhat of a new program, I think. It came out kind of within the last 5 to 6 years at MSU. And Professor She still kind of heads up the whole program, which is awesome. He's amazing, super passionate about the whole space. And it's really skyrocketed too. I mean, it's grown a lot over the past few years. And so basically it gets you the course requirements out to take the CFP exam. So everybody who goes throughout this minor, and it's also a master's program, so there be master's students in your classes as well, is ready to sit for the CFP exam. So it's a huge step up, and the employers are looking at you, you're looking for a full-time job, and you have those requirements out of the way. That's one thing knocked off
Mm-hmm.
to move you forward in that direction of eventually getting those CFP marks. So it's really an amazing opportunity if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the kind of shift in the industry. I know Dave and I have talked on this podcast before where we kind of got into the industry almost by default a little bit, and then we started like taking the classes and doing the CFP stuff. So I started in 2006. I think I got my CFP credentials in 2011. But now it's like there's a whole group of, and I don't know how many kids are in the program. I think there's quite a few. Like seems to me it keeps growing every year. We've
Yeah,
got a whole group of kids that are graduating with all of the like basic level knowledge to sit for the CFP exam and then go out and get their experience. Which is it's great for us because we get a bunch of interns like yourself that are great and have great input and help us out a lot. But also, some of the associate advisors that we have went through the program is just hitting the ground running and actually focusing on financial planning instead of like when Dave and I came up, it was focus on selling investments and selling insurance. Where now it's like focus on creating a financial plan for people. So I think that's a huge boost to the industry, and especially smart, talented kid like yourself to be able to hit the ground running. I think is awesome.
absolutely. And I think the Wealth Management Association as well definitely really complements that and helps out with that. I mean, because they bring on firms like yourself who are more on that fiduciary, CFP, holding
Hmm.
themselves to that standard and really looking for the best interest in the client. So that I think the caliber of the firms that the club brings in, and it tends to be more on that kind of independent RIA side.
Yeah,
Which is kind of what the business seems to be shifting into, which,
sure.
like you said, and seems awesome. I mean, especially going, like I said, that life planning, connecting meaning to money, it just seems a
Yeah,
lot more meaningful to me.
yeah, for sure. And it's great for the industry. I'm super bullish and excited about this industry with the kids, young men and young women like you growing up in the program, getting the education first. I think is awesome. So, tell me, Nathan, what are you most looking forward to as a career in financial planning?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm honestly really looking forward to eventually getting up into that lead advisor position and hopefully building like lifelong relationships with my clients and really seeing them live out their lives and helping them live out their best lives truly. This seems awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Love that. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about how interesting is not even the right word, scary the market is right now. And I'm super like you're our first intern. Well, I can't remember when exactly our very first intern started. I think it was like COVID, so we did have like the COVID drop real quick. But I'm pretty sure we hired him after that. I believe that you're the first intern that's ever gone through like we're not quite in bear market territory, but we got to be getting close. We're definitely in correction
Yeah,
territory.
yeah,
And so I'm curious, like, what that experience was like for you. I'm super glad that you got to go through it with us
yeah,
because fortunately for us, it doesn't happen very often, but there's always very interesting dynamics. And I'm sure you've seen, like, you've been sitting in on meetings over the past couple of months, like how that tune has changed and how those conversations have changed. So I'm curious, like, what your takeaway is from that experience.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. It's honestly been fascinating to me because I'm really into the kind of psychology of things, trying to think of what are these biases coming from, these thoughts on the market or whatever it is. So I do definitely see, like we kind of have talked about before after meetings or whatever, that these political biases can definitely play into your thoughts on the market. Like, say, you're a Democrat, I mean, there's a good chance you're gonna think the market's crap right now,
Hmm.
just because of those biases that come into it. So I think it's really, it was really awesome to see how you guys handle that, and you comfort them in that. You don't necessarily like try to attack from the other side and be like, no, you're wrong. You kind
Yeah.
of come from the standpoint of, I understand where you're coming from, but this is the
Hmm.
data and this is the statistics that back up everything that I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
So just being able to kind of calm them through the storm like that and seeing the techniques you guys use to do that is
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely the political bias is always there, but what it does is it like strokes your emotions more, right? Like you're more emotional to what's going on because of that bias, and that's when people get into trouble, right? I always tell
Yeah.
everyone the more emotional, like people make the worst financial decisions when there's the most emotion going on. And there's a ton of emotion out there right now about what's going on with the world, what's going on politically, what's going on with the US. And then to couple that with, you know, a pretty severe drop in the market the last couple of days has a lot of people on edge. And so, one of the things I was actually thinking about this morning as far as like the future of financial planning, we always hear about how AI is going to take over everything. And like, this is a great example for you of like, AI is not coming for your job because I guarantee people aren't going to their computer right now and being like, what should I do with my
Yeah.
investments? And then just being like, oh, well, the computer tells me not to sell anything, so I feel better now, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's no there's no empathy there, which is kind of what you were talking about before of like, hey, we're in this with you. I know you're worried, and I can sense that, and let's sit and talk about it, and let's try to make the best decision for you, even if it's not the most rational one to get you through this challenging period, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm really, I selfishly wish all of our interns could experience things like this, but well, I'm not.
Yeah.
I selfishly wish that they don't. But it's a great experience, and I started in this business in 2006, so I got to live through the 2008, 2007, and it really shaped me as an advisor and taught me the best way to try to get through those difficult times and developed a lot of those skills that you're seeing right now over my career because of that. And so, I'm glad that you got to go through it, even though I'm not glad that clients have to go through it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Tremendous learning experience.
So we do, primarily retirement planning around here through our strategic, reliable blueprint process. And I'm sure as a, young young adults, you probably haven't thought a whole lot about retirement or the effects of retirement, except for maybe, I'm not sure how old your parents are, your grandparents going through it. So I'm curious how your, thought process has changed or what you've learned about retirement planning or that process kind of working with us the last couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of fascinated me on the aspect of how people go about transitioning into their retirement. Like some people, they want to work into it more, they want to do only part time, or like a recent client meeting we had, they wanted to retire at like 50, so retire early. So it's really just interesting to see, kind of people's thoughts on that and what they want out of life and kind of their reasoning behind it. I mean, because you see the trade-offs. Say that they want to retire at 50, that may make it so they can't go on that vacation every year, but I mean, they're not going to be working. So if that's what they want, then that's their meaning connecting to their money. But it really is kind of about figuring out that meaning. And for some people, I think I've seen that that means them continuing on to work. It may not be full time, but
Mm-hmm.
I know Dave talks about it a lot. I think it's helpful in retirement to have something to do for the mind, just to keep yourself active and keep yourself sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. We always talk about it in terms of like retire to something, not from something. But I'm glad it is interesting. Like everybody's retirement decision timeline is very different and truly, unique to them. But it's not, yes, the full retirement age of Social Security is 67, but no, most people don't retire at 67 because Social Security full retirement age hits it, right? Right. So like and all of those decisions you make around that timeline impact like what you're able to do and how you're able to do it and the decisions that we make for people. And so we could be retirement planning for two people and having completely different conversations just based on when they're planning on retiring and what that looks like. So what do you think your favorite part about financial planning is so far?
Yeah, I would say being able to help others and seeing the impact that you can make on people, and really just the relief that can come from whatever you're telling them, that they're fine, they're going to be able to retire, that everything's going to be okay, and seeing them going from like a super stressed out state, not knowing where they're at all, to really being relaxed about it and having that comfort, knowing that you're their guy and being able to kind of let some of that stress off and enjoy the other things in life, I think is awesome.
Yeah, we talk about it, not probably not as often as we should, but like a big part of what we do for clients is just take a lot of that worry away from them, and a lot of the day to day about like thinking about the market, thinking about how money you should be invested, thinking about, whether you made a good financial decision here, whether you need an insurance policy, like all that stuff. We do the heavy lifting and walk them through that and help them make that decision so they can focus on whatever it is that's most important in their life, and let us focus on the tactical side of financial planning and work with them to make those decisions so that they don't have to worry about it. They know that it's taken care of. And just that relief that you were talking about is so huge for a lot of our clients of, thank goodness I don't have to worry about this, because it, really stresses me out and I don't know how to think about it, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
In your experience so far, has been your least favorite, or what surprised you the most that you didn't necessarily think you would be doing as a financial planner?
Yeah, I would have to go with the paperwork. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jeff, but I mean it just kind of, it gets repetitive and just filling out, but it's definitely important. I mean, obviously it's a needed aspect of the business. I guess I'm looking at it in a way that I'm learning the business from the ground up. So it's an aspect of the business. It may not be what I want to do specifically down the line, but I think even that can be a big thing sometimes, is just figuring out what you don't want to do,
Yeah,
honestly, you
for
know?
sure. Well, and part of the reason why we have our interns go through and work with Jeff on things like paperwork and, fee billing and some of that other compliance back office stuff is simply because it is so important. And like Dave and I can't do what we do unless Jeff's there and Jeff's team is there to do that stuff. Our best time is served like in front of clients, working with clients. But if you're have breaks in the chain of like the paperwork isn't getting done, the money isn't getting moved, like the trades aren't getting done, it doesn't matter how much time Dave and I spend in front of a client. If we can't do the things that they need us to do for them, then there's no point, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's a big reason why we want to expose you to that stuff, because it is very important to like the overall success of the business. And some people like myself also, I'm not a big fan of paperwork and doing paperwork, and but it's a necessary evil, and like figuring it out and knowing why it's important is why we kind of put you through that. So it's interesting. Um, I won't tell Jeff, but he's probably listening. So remember, he signs your paychecks. So if you were to give an incoming freshman in wealth management program advice, what would it be?
Yeah, yeah. So I'd say definitely join the Wealth Management Association and try to connect with your peers as much as possible. I mean, now's the time. You're never really going to have that again, being around so many like-minded students that are trying to achieve the same thing. So that's an awesome opportunity. And you'll also get exposed to opportunities like this. So I can't recommend joining that association enough and trying to get involved in it, whatever it is. I know they have a podcast, so going on the podcast or doing some writing for them. They have a blog, it'd be very beneficial. And then another one would be one class specifically that I think they should like focus on, and it's kind of a lot, would be the income tax and estate planning class.
Uh-huh.
And that one's like just very important too, because I think a lot of the value that I've seen you guys even provide, or financial advisors in general, is that income tax planning, which is, it can be a lot, reading that IRC code or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
it's dense and it's a lot of material because it's essentially like two classes shoved into one. It's that income tax and estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say definitely focus in on that one. A lot of important material. And then as well as just, take advantage of Professor Schiestel. Like he's totally there for everyone in the program. I mean, he sends out emails, it seems like weekly, with like new job opportunities, whatever it is, or new programs that he has for you. Take full advantage of everything that he has to offer for you with all his connections.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I think, you have stood out since I've known you as far as like being involved in networking and going to different things. Like I think we went to the FPA symposium last year. Like there's a lot of stuff like that you can just, networking and meeting people is not something that they normally teach you in school. And so being involved in the Wealth Management Association, I think really helps you figure that piece of it out because it is super important when you get to, the level of having clients, but also like having resources for those clients and working with other professionals. And you're right about the income tax planning, which it seems like more and more every single year. We're doing more and more of that and estate planning. And I almost wish those would be separate classes because there's so much in income tax.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
get like,
No.
to prep for the test, that makes sense. But one of the first things that I would do after you get the CFP is look more into income tax and tax planning and things like that. So because it is just a growing need in our business for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, even after that class, I mean, especially being in this internship and seeing kind of all the value that can come from that, I'm going back into that book and I'm like trying to read through it because, there's a lot of material. Some of that just flies straight over. So trying to get
Yeah,
back into that.
very true. Very good. Anything else that you can think of about your experience or retirement planning in general that you want to share with our listeners here?
I can't think of anything off the
All
top of my
right.
mind.
Covered it all. Love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Nathan, having you on the show and having you as an intern. I know you got a couple more weeks here. You got a project that you're doing for us that we're looking forward to. But just want to thank you for your time, and you got a bright future ahead of you. So make sure you
Yeah,
stay in
thank you.
touch.
Thanks for the opportunity as well. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you for joining us for another chat about your retirement and finances. Please hit that subscribe button. You can also contact us at srbadvisors.com or email us at info@srbadvisors.com. See you next time on Kitchen Table Finance.
This is a Zedia Media production.